Hello and welcome back to the channel. Now I've had a fair few office GMTs pass through my hands and I've put a few videos up as well, and every time I've had discussions about these GMTs online or looked through some of the comments on my own videos, I've noticed there's a large proportion of people that say, if only it was a true GMT. And I see this in Facebook forums, in groups, on other pages as well as YouTube. So I've done it. I've gone out and I've purchased a true GMT. So this will be my first experience with a true GMT, by extension, my first experience with the newly released Miyota 9075 movement, and my first experience with the Los Angeles based Vaer brand. This one should be very interesting. Sorry, I'll grab my coat. Let's just get into the review, shall we? Welcome to the Vaer G5 Meridian True GMT. So what we have here is a 39mm vintage inspired American assembled true GMT. I measure a 46mm lug to lug. The case itself is 13.2mm thick. This is of course a double domed sapphire crystal. So at the highest point of that crystal, you're looking at 15.6mm of thickness. You've got 120 click bi-directional bezel. It's 200 meters of water resistance, and that's guaranteed for 2 years as part of the warranty, which is nice to see. It's a Miyota 9075 GMT movement, so that's 42 hours of power reserve, and Vaer guarantee a -5 to +15 seconds per day in terms of regulation. Let's start with the dial on this. It's a really nice green sunburst effect, similar to one of my Islanders actually. We have applied indices, and Vaer mix it up a little bit here. So you'll notice there's a mix that alternates between circular and trapezoidal indices around the dial, and then a triangle at the 12 o'clock. It's a nice bit of variety, and it stops it feeling too much like an obvious homage. There is a date window at the 6 o'clock, and I'm so happy to see that the date wheel is color matched, and the surround on the date window matches the indices with a nice matte metallic finish. In terms of the hands, of course, you have your GMT hand, and this is a really bright sort of orangey red. It is a fantastic color. It pops perfectly. I really think this is one of the best colored GMT hands that you could possibly have picked for this colorway, if not the best. Then above that, you have sword style hour and minute hands, and on top of that, a lollipop seconds hand. Everything is loomed, and I'll show you the loom later on in the video. For dial text, you've got Vaer at the top, and then 600 feet, 200 meters automatic, not too much. And one thing that Vaer are proud about, and like to shout about, is the American assembly. So obviously the parts are sourced elsewhere, but they come in and the watch is fully assembled and regulated in America. And there's a really nice video on YouTube if you want to see exactly what Vaer do. Only other point of note on the dial is there is a minute scale around the far edge with small dots for each individual minute, and it's very easy to read and very legible. The case here has a mixture of polishing and brushing. There's some really nice polished chamfers and sort of twisted lugs, a little bit Omega-esque I would say, and then below that you have a large brushed portion on each of the case sides. The bezel, it's worth to note, has a polished chamfer, and then on the top where the knurling is, it's brushed finish. It's a nice variety, and it keeps it intriguing and interesting as a package. On the case back, you have full radial brushing, and you've got a nice large window where you can see the Miyota 9075 purring away, along with a custom Vaer rotor. Well, I say custom, it's the stock Miyota rotor with Vaer stamped on top of it. The crown on this is signed, which is nice to see. Everything is done very tastefully, and it feels quality in the hand. Now the bezel is bi-directional, as I mentioned earlier, and this is one of the best bi-directional bezels I've ever felt, and for the price point, I think it is superb. Have a listen. It has very well defined clicks, it has excellent resistance, and it has minimal backplay. I'm really impressed with this bi-directional bezel. I think it's definitely something that you're going to want to fiddle with. Now I wanted to talk a little bit about the crystal here. So it's a double domed sapphire, and it does look really nice in certain lights, but if you've had double domed sapphire before, despite the fact that it has AR coating on it, it just picks up a lot of reflections, and this is inherent with every double domed sapphire that I've ever had. And you particularly will notice it in shadows and in areas of shade. As you'll see, in direct sun, it's really legible. And indoors, it's also really legible as well. But as soon as I go outdoors into the shade, where you've got lots of items to reflect off, and you can see here all the trees and all the scenery, and even myself with the camera, it does reflect a lot. It doesn't stop it being legible, but it's something to be aware of if you haven't had double dome sapphire before on a watch. To operate the Miyota 9075, you simply unwind the crown, and in position 1, simply you wind the movement. In the second position, you're moving your hour hand. So this will be your local time, and this is also tied directly to the date wheel. To adjust the time on the GMT, you need to move forward to position 3. And essentially you're going to set your GMT hand first, and then you would go back and set your local time with the hour hand, which is a slightly different way of working if you're used to having office GMTs. I picked this one up with the Tropic strap, which you'll see here, which is super soft and is good quality, and also a stainless steel bracelet, which you'll see here. This one has a pressed outer clasp, milled inner clasp. It has screw pins to adjust the size, which is nice, and you'll see it fits very nicely with the case here. So it integrates well, and both of these, you don't need any tools for the strap removals or bracelet changes. It can all be done just by squeezing down on these spring-loaded quick release bars, which is nice. The Loom here was a really pleasant surprise. So I'm struggling to pick between my Loom Champion and then these 20 layers of BGW9 that you're going to see on the Vaer. It's a really fantastic application of Loom, and it's really well balanced across the dial, the hands, and the bezel. I was curious to see if it would change in 5 minutes, so I went away and came back once it had calmed down, and 10 minutes later it's still very difficult to pick between the two. BGW9 doesn't tend to be as bright, but it does tend to be very long lasting, so this is an awesome application of Loom by Vaer, and it's definitely one of the strong points of the watch. Can you see all of these little specks? I'm sorry to say that these are under the case back. These are not on the top. After wiping it several times, I realized that the watch has been assembled with dust inside the case back. Now, for me, it's not a problem to just fix this. I've got a watchmaker's toolbox. I can pop the case back off, literally 2 blows of air, pop it back on, everything was good. However, I made sure to reach out to Vaer. So I sent a picture over to Vaer of the dust behind the case back and just explained that I don't personally need to return this watch, but I would like to have a full understanding that if I was a customer without a watch toolbox and without the ability to sort this out quickly and easily, what support they would offer. So Vaer were apologetic in their email. They came back to me very quickly. They would happily replace the watch for any customers that had this issue. If there was a sentimental value attached to the watch, then they would of course make sure that they were able to clear the dust from inside the case back on that exact watch. And they also advised that they collect any cases like this and use them to improve their QC moving forward. So that's all good, and I do trust Vaer on this. I believe they would help. If you've had any surprising incidents with hair, follicles, or dust on a new watch, let me know in the comments. I'm always interested to hear, because I am either really unlucky or it is becoming increasingly common in watchmaking. Anyway, that's the response. As far as I'm concerned, that's all I could ask for from a company. Nothing is ever going to be perfect, and out of a large batch of watches, there's always going to be a few with something that slips through a quality control. That's just how manufacturing, production, and assembly works. From my side, I give it the benefit of the doubt. It's up to you how you would like to judge this situation. But yeah, onwards with the review. The second item that I would complain about on the Vaer is the bracelet. I think is distinctly average. It's fine, but it doesn't match $800 as a price tag. It feels like a $400 bracelet in terms of the fit, the finish, and the quality. I think it's a bracelet that they've used historically on other Vaer watches, and this is more of an elevated price point alongside a Swiss G7 that they released a little while back. And I think for these higher priced watches, they need to consider a next tier of bracelet. The pressed outer clasp is a little bit rattly. There's no quick adjust, which is something we'd look for at this price point. And the definition on the end links is not great, and the brushing is not great either. A very small nitpick that I have with the Tropic strap, the taper towards the end of the strap means that it doesn't fit very well in the second keeper. And if you've got a smaller to medium sized wrist like me, you have that little bit of extra tail, and it would be nice if it just fit a little bit tighter into that keeper and there was a little bit less taper, but it's a very small nitpick. One issue that I have with the Miyota 9075, and this is not on Vaer, is that within this movement there is no quick date set. So if you're wearing this watch every day, then it's not a problem. But having the true GMT, you're sacrificing that quick set date. And that means if you have a large collection and you leave this watch in your box for a week, 2 weeks, you've got to cycle through every single date, and that's a lot of winding the crown. Apparently this is commonplace with true GMT movements, and this was my first experience with this type of watch. For somebody like myself with a large watch collection, that could be a make or break. My final critique on this Vaer is the brushing on the case sides. It's not bad, but again I think it can be finer, and I think it can be of a higher quality to match this price point. It seems a little bit streaky, and it looks a little bit rough. It's smooth to the touch, but I think a finer process with this would get a finer finish and would feel more premium and would elevate it again. There's so much to like on this watch. The fantastic loom, the beautiful dial, the awesome bi-directional bezel, the choice of movement, and the overall package here, and the way that it looks with that vintage twist without being too much of a homage, means that I really like this watch. For me, this is the first Miyota 9075 release that really caught my attention. The vintage styling does something for me. I didn't like the Boulevard that this movement was launched on, and there's not been too many other micro brands that have been able to pick up the 9075, and those that have haven't done anything that's piqued my interest. And fair play to Vaer for making something that I think has mass appeal and houses the 9075. So you've seen the good, you've seen the bad, and hopefully everything you wanted to see on this watch. So let's come to a definitive conclusion.
Yes or no, this is your last chance, no beating around the bush.
So the Vaer is not perfect, and no watch I've ever had on this channel, and probably ever will, is going to be perfect. But it hits enough of the right spots for me that I really appreciate the Vaer, and I would like to keep it for quite a while to come. I won't say forever, because nothing seems to last that long in my collection. In terms of where a watch is assembled, the American assembly is not a major selling point for me, but I appreciate it because the brand is based in America. And I've mentioned before, I think it's nice when a micro brand assembles the watches in their country of origin. I think if you're constantly traveling in and out of time zones, then the true GMT is such a fantastic feature to have. But if you're not constantly in and out of time zones, and you're just looking to maybe track a time zone of friends and family in a different country, then I don't see how it's vastly superior to an office GMT. I don't like the lack of the quick set date. I think that is a bit of a pain in the ass if I'm going to pull it out of my watch box in 2 weeks. And like I said, in the negatives, that's not on Vaer. So I've really enjoyed my time with this watch, but what do you think about Vaer? What do you think about the design of this watch? And how easily could you integrate a Miyota 9075 into a large collection? Please let me know in the comments. I'm really interested, and I try to reply to as many as I can. I love having an open and honest discussion about watches. If you've liked the video, please hit the thumbs up, it means a huge amount. And I'm nearing 1,000 subscribers, which is really quite unbelievable. I'm really flattered, and I thank you so much to all my subscribers. And if you'd like to see more content, please do hit the subscribe button, hit the bell icon, and then it will show you when there's a new upload. And once I get to 1,000 subscribers, which is soon I hope, then I will do a giveaway at some point in the next couple of videos, just to say thank you and to give something back to you. Anyway, it's been a pleasure, and I will see you on the next one. Cheers.